This is a quick video about how to mark your two pieces of fabric. Okay, so when you've drawn out your, you pinned your pattern on your piece of fabric, you've drawn around the pattern, you've added on your seam allowance, and then you cut it out. All the information is on this side, but there's nothing on that side. So it's up to you whether you need to do it or not. I don't mark that side because I know what my seam allowances are. But if you're a bit new to doing it, then it's a good idea to mark it. You can use carbon paper. So you put a piece of carbon paper underneath. So like this. So that's carbon paper. And then you lay your pattern on top, or your fabric on top, and then you'd get a tracing wheel and you'd mark around everything and mark all the important things. That works quite well on cottons. It doesn't work so well on wools. Okay, so I haven't got a tracing wheel here, but if I just use a blunt pencil, you'll see that I can barely see that. I don't know that you'd even be able to see it on the screen. It's so faint. Obviously using blue on black is not necessarily useful, so try a different colour, maybe yellow or red. So that's one way of doing it. Or a traditional way of doing it is to use Tailor's tacking. So you'd need Tailor's tacking thread, which is just a kind of fluffier, thicker thread than normal. And I usually use it double thread, just so that I've got a better chance of not losing some of my threads. So just created a lovely knot there. There we go. So what you do is you thread a needle and you pick up your fabric and just make sure that you don't manipulate it too much. So with a bigger piece, you'd keep it, well, any piece, you'd keep it fairly close to the table, and you're just going to mark, or you're just going to stitch around everything that you've marked around, so all your pattern piece. But what you end up doing is end up making it nice and loopy. So if I show you. So the flatter you can keep it to the table, the better, really, because you've got less chance of getting it incorrect. And then roughly, I would allow, I mean, I've got nice chubby fingers, I would allow at least a finger, the depth of my finger in between. And then I'm doing them about half an inch, centimetre apart. They'll probably get wider as I go along. But you don't want them too far apart. Keeping your pattern piece attached at the moment, just until you've got all the way around. Just make sure it stays nice and loopy. Like I say, I know I don't do this all the time. It depends what I'm working on, but if I know that I'm using the standard seam allowance that I always use, then I won't do this necessarily, just because it's time consuming. However, it's if you want an accurate finish, if you're likely to leave it and come back to it and you don't know what seam allowance you used, then it's a good thing to get in practice of doing, basically. It's entirely up to you, but what basically you're doing is you're creating all these loops, and then you're going to cut through them in a moment and separate them out. So I've got my tail and my thread is getting in my way. So I'm just going to leave it to that point, mainly because I'm running out of thread. But you'd work all the way around your pattern piece, and then what you do is you'd remove that, and then you need a sharp pair of scissors or snips. Just make sure you've got nice long loops, and then you're going to just, you're not going to do that, you're going to open it up first. And then you're going to cut through. Basically, that is marking. Everything that I've got here is now marked on this side as well. Okay, so you can also, if you want to, you can cut through these just so that they're not loopy. I think I always cut through the longer ones. Up to you whether if you've got short ones then don't. It's entirely up to you. But you've now got two pieces that are exactly the same shape and are marked like that. One reason for leaving them looped is then you always know which is your wrong side, because these are looped. That's the wrong side. Those are looped, the wrong side, and that's your right side, and that is your right side. Okay, and that is tailor's tacking essentially. What you also need to do is when you get to a point where you've got a notch, so a notch is denoting something. So here, this notch is so that we know where the bottom of our fly piece is going to opening is going to be. So I would just go through and do, it's probably enough actually doing it like that, snip that off, open it out, snip, and there we go, we've got both sides marked with a notch as well. All right, but you work around everything. You do all round the outside edge of all your pieces, so your trouser fronts, your trouser backs, your fly pieces. I wouldn't do your pocket facings or your pocket bags, but you might want to mark on, at least notch your knee lines and your waist lines and your pocket openings if you haven't notched. So I use a tiny little notch like that. You can see that with the stitching there as well. So it's like 2/8 of an inch, 1/4 of a centimetre. That is as much of a notch as I'll give myself, and I have that on my pocket opening, my knee lines, etc. But if you don't want to cut into your seam allowance, and if you don't trust yourself, and what you don't want to do is cut all the way up to your stitch line, because then you might cut too far, you won't be able to use that seam allowance just in case you need to make anything bigger, then marking it with tailor's tacking is another way of doing it. Okay, so that's just a quick little short video about tailor's tacking. Okay, how to get all your information from this side onto your other panel. Okay, thank you. If you've liked this video, then please like and subscribe to my channel, please. Thank you. Bye bye.